government created California wildfires. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Blog Talk. You are possibly watching us uh, on recording through YouTube or Live Leak or Vimeo or BitChute, any number of different places. You could be watching this. We get out the most important information possible for anyone who's paying attention to how the government operates, the occult, warfare against the people, etc., etc., etc. And we're going to go through the description for tonight's show real quick. We got David Dauterive on the line. I'm hoping to have Clifford Eberhardt in tonight. We got lots of viewers already, and it's a big week for news. They always announce some sort of distraction story at about 7 o'clock Eastern time on Friday. Again, they're talking about this Jamal Khashoggi Joker. I mean, honestly, I never heard of this guy before he was allegedly assassinated. Now they're saying KSM is the one not KSM, whatever they call that Saudi, so-called prince. They're all crypto Jews. They've got that Jewish bloodline. We've been pointing that out for many years. Seen by hundreds of millions of people, pointing out this. What's the most important information that we've talked about over the years about how things are operating outside of the United States? The war in Yemen, the Saudis pushing this, the Saudis and Israelis ruling their region with an iron fist on behalf of global Jewry, global organized crime syndicates that are sitting on the top of all the other crime syndicates. There are definitely, there's Yakuza, there's the Triad, of course, there is La Cosa Nostra. There are organized crime syndicates for all backgrounds of individuals, but the one that has the most control over all the levers of power is the Chabad Lubavitch organized crime syndicate, which controls the president of Russia, the president of the United States. It seems to control all of the weapons of war as far as the nuclear state apparatus. They can use, Native American Indians for fronting their casinos in the United States of America. They can use folks, Steve Wynn and Sheldon Adelson use Chinese fronts for their operations in the Far East. I mean, now they're all going to use fronts. And it's not just these individuals, because sometimes the fronts, they hold more of the levers of power right in their hands. Now, you can't say that with Israel or Jewry, because they have a backdoor into everybody's computer. They have the Samson option, which we talk about whenever we go on international television, and the subject of nuclear arsenals comes up, or the subject of the JCPOA, the so-called Iran nuclear deal comes up. We say, wait a second, Iran doesn't have any nuclear weapons, and Israel has hundreds of nuclear weapons, and they have a not secret plan where they have all the world capitals already wired up. And, I've got to thank one of the listeners. I'm going to try to see if I can't pull up this guy's name, because, a lot of folks put out there, and I've been misquoted on Hatchet Jobs that say that I believe that the World Trade Center was a controlled demolition, which it was a controlled demolition, and that they were using exclusively military-grade nanothermite. Now, I think that there were all sorts of incendiary devices used, but a lot of folks think it was a nuclear explosion, an underground nuclear explosion, and there's evidence that points to that as well. I don't think it's an either-or thing where folks are either it was they didn't use any nanothermite, or they didn't use any, so-called tactical small-scale underground nukes. So I'm going to see if I can find this guy I'm talking about and the information, because like you could get lost in this information, guys. I mean, I think that that's part of the problems that we have here in the movement, because after each little thing that they do, we say that's enough to abolish the government under the law. Every act of war is enough to abolish the government, and obviously it was the CIA, the Mossad, the Russian intelligence agencies, the GRU, the FSB, MI6, all the intelligence agencies of the world were involved in 9/11. Who are they working on behalf? Organized Jewry. I mean, how were these individuals blackmailed into participating? The answer is all sorts of different ways. All sorts of different ways. Who's involved with blackmailing these individuals? Well, the Greenbergs, Maurice Hank Greenberg and his children, the Kroll Associates crowd, Charles Kushner, father of Jared Kushner. I mean, you can name all of them. You see, this is what folks, once you get folks to like step out of the thought of being worried about, thinking the right thing is happening, you start seeing the fact that it's not about like, you gather a whole bunch of folks that would be knowledgeable about this information, and then you got to get them all to shut up, and that's some sort of hard thing to do, that's some sort of difficult thing to do. All these guys involved, they wouldn't have reached their point to have the knowledge to carry out the treason that they do without the knowledge that, I don't know, 30,000 people down the ranks from them all know to keep their mouth shut, either that they will be neutralized if they talk about it, or they're in on it and they already know about it. I mean, it's not like anybody is covering this information up, as far as, I mean, it's covered up, but as far as the information being out there, look, I mean, when we talk about this stuff, instantaneously, dozens and dozens and hundreds, and then by the end of the week, between 5,000 and 10,000 people will have watched this broadcast or listened to this broadcast where we say, look, all elections are rigged, the government is engaged in war against the people, the Department of Homeland Security is running all agencies of government through something called continuity of government, continuity of operations. I wrote a book about this stuff, and it's called The Militia Handbook, and it's written at an 8th grade level with top secret information interspersed with, and even the top secret information is written at 8th grade level. You can't not comprehend this stuff that we're saying to you. Hey, glad Clifford is watching. We've got Clifford Eberhardt on the line. Michael Dick is on the line. So we've got, Amanda Bays is on the line. Greetings, Amanda. So we've got a number of individuals who know all this stuff and who have either practiced what we preach on their own, in public, during government meetings, calling for the abolition of government, calling out individuals face to face for their treason. They've done it with us, standing side by side in the nation's capital in Virginia. Clifford operates out in California, where there's massive UN Agenda 21 attacks being carried out by the United States military on behalf of the owners and officers of the world government. And let's get to the description now, because this is going to set the stage. I think we got enough listeners to set the stage for tonight's broadcast, which is the most important broadcast of the week. No one else is doing this except for those who are abiding by what we're saying. There's no reformation of this government, and the law of the land, Constitution for the United States, requires the abolition of this government because they're engaged in war against the people. I'm citing Virginia Constitution, which is the basis of the U.S. Constitution, basis of the Declaration of Independence, etc., based on the King James Version of the Bible, which calls for the death penalty for all these guys who are, and so does the U.S. Constitution, for all these guys that we're talking about who are guilty of treason. And that's, we're not, we say we'll let most of you off the hook, but not all of you. The leaders of this war against the people, the law is clear what treason says in Article 3, Section 3. We'll get to Article 3, Section 3 later on in the program. You can look it up and see for yourself what Article 3, Section 3 says is treason, which is war against the people, and what the punishment is. Punishment for treason is always consistent. Tonight's show is titled Government Created Fires, UN Rigged Election, Law Requires Abolition of Government. Okay, here's the description. Chris Dorsey, that's me, of the Virginia Militia, as he does every week, explains in a simple manner how the organized crime syndicate, which controls all governments and headed by Jewish mobsters, carries out war against the people. Chris, David Dauterive, and Clifford Eberhardt discuss the fact that because the criminal usury-based Bank for International Settlements /IMF /UN /SWIFT system /World Bank et al. Are engaged in war and attempted genocide against the people, the KJV-based Constitution /common law /law of the land requires the abolition of all governments. I can't be any more clear. Come on. I mean, it's a joke when these other guys get viewed and folks pay attention to anything they say. Nothing else matters. No other political ideology, no other political idea matters. You are all slaves. We are slaves less than the average person because we're aware. We see our digital currency shackles. We'll get into the fact that right as Bitcoin is devalued massively for the most in a couple years, Christine Lagarde of the IMF says that, hey, we're going to start having a digital world currency. Like, we don't already have that, but it's going to escalate. Okay, so let's see, where were we? We shall detail the United Nations Agenda 21 operation, which is proceeding as predicted. Wait a second here. Hey, David, I think I may have screwed something up and made it a 15-minute broadcast on Blog Talk. Is there a way I can go back in?
Keep going.
Okay.
No, you can't. I already tried. But as usual, the show roll after the timer goes out, so it should do the same thing this time.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just keep rolling then. Let's see. The government / energy corporations. Okay, thanks, David. The government / energy corporations / insurance industry has created the California fires as part of the expansion of martial law. As predicted, first migrants shall be housed by FEMA / Department of Homeland Security at Walmarts, then targets of offensive war. And that's the California wildfires or the offensive war. As we see with the persons who survived the California fire assault. Any person who participates in elections are complicit, it should say are complicit in treason. Sorry, I write these things real quick. We say the same thing every week. Let's see. We're still rolling. And yeah, we got it back. Sorry, we're having a little technical difficulty here, but that's all right. So we went over the fact that, as predicted, first they're going to put the migrants in FEMA camps at Walmart. And now you're seeing the survivors of the offensive direct energy weapon warfare in the California fires, those who are victims of the so-called Paradise Lost fires, are now being housed by FEMA at Walmarts. Just like we predicted. Just like, not just us, everybody predicted this. So,
I've seen this. Chris, I've seen this during Katrina. I mean, where did everybody go during Hurricane Katrina? Where was the military, the National Guard, and all the other government agencies? Where were they giving out food? They were giving them out at not only Walmart, but Targets, every supermarket distribution.
yeah.
So this stuff's, I mean, so I've seen this before. This is nothing new. It's just being escalated. It's being brought out in the open. Whereas, back in 2015, it was just confined to New Orleans. Now they want to bring it everywhere.
Well, yeah, absolutely. They're doing it. There's evidence. You have to be delusional. You have to deny what you're seeing with your own eyes in order to dispute what's being said, just like with the fake shootings. You have to deny what you're seeing with your own eyes in order to believe it, what you're hearing with your own ears, the evidence that you see, all what you feel in your gut. You have to deny all of that in order to fit into this society that is run to destroy you, to wage war against you, and eventually to eliminate you just as soon as they have gained every bit of value out of enslaving you. So obviously the law requires the abolition of this government, and we're going to get into that as we continue with the description of tonight's show. We shall detail, as we said, the United Nations Agenda 21 operation, which is proceeding as planned. Okay, so we went through all that about how FEMA and Department of Homeland Security are now out in the open. Nobody's disputing. Yeah, they're housing folks at Walmarts. Walmarts are these detention centers. And they're told that they can't go back to their homes. So if they don't have enough money for a hotel, they are detained by the government who started the fire and who wants their property. Folks have been contacting me. Thanks for the contact about the high-speed rail. The building for the high-speed rail is right along the route of this strategically set fire. So there you go. There's a lot of information out there about that. Any person who participates in elections is guilty of treason. If one trusts anything involving government or corporations, one is not competent. All elections are rigged by the owners and officers of the institutions which unlawfully control government. The law requires all weapons of war, public airwaves, valuation of currency to be in the hands of the people through the militia, which is the body of the people trained to arms. That's what the militia is, by definition. By definition of the origin of Constitution for the United States, which is Virginia Declaration of Rights, and by definition of the Declaration of Independence. By definition of those words, the body of the people and the militia which is the body of the people trained to arms, are one and the same. One cannot exist without the other, and without one or the other, the state ceases to exist. A legitimate state ceases to exist. So the law requires all weapons of war, public airwaves, valuation of currency to be in the hands of the people. Those are the weapons of war being used against us. Again, Chris shall explain the writing off of Donald Trump's $4 billion debt to the Jewish bank owners by Wilber Ross, who is now Treasury Secretary, acting on behalf of Rothschild Incorporated. Because the law requires the enforcement that only this body of the people forwards. You see, because we're the only ones that are calling for the real enforcement of the law that will end slavery, that will end and abolish this criminal system based in usury and war against the people that we live under, because we're the only ones that are calling for that, and we're the only ones who have the standing to be able to call for that, and we do so when we're armed. We do so on government property. We outflank government armed standing army, occupying army, waging war against the people, and they are, defeated in martial situations that are guaranteed and protected by our rule of law, because we're the only ones that do that. Those who work with us directly, this is the only legitimate governing body on the planet. This is a meeting of this only legitimate governing body on the planet. Congratulations. This is a grand jury. We are indicting and convicting all those who we have talked about over the past 15 years, exposing the crimes of the government. And we're acting on behalf of the militia, which is the highest law enforcement arm on the planet. Let's see here. We just went through Trump and the Rothschild connection with Wilber Ross, and the fact that he is a front for the Jewish mafia like all other so-called government officials, because the law requires the enforcement that only this body of the people forward. Ours is the only legitimate governing body. The law of the land / law of God requires the neutralization of all engaged in usury, including but not limited to government / corporate employees, lawyers, judges, police, usury, and war against the people. All power is vested and derived from the people. All power is vested and derived from the people. There cannot be any legitimate power out anywhere in the world unless it comes from the people. Man can never be subject to his creation. Government is a two-dimensional creation of man. If one doesn't comprehend these basic maxims, axioms, truisms, whatever one wishes to call it, one is an absolute slave. Show me anyone who will agree to be subjected to any government, and I will show you a slave. Anyone who works for a government. You see, government is subject to the people, and government must at all times be amenable to the people. What am I citing when I'm saying this? I'm not making up these phrases. That comes from the basis of all law in the United States, which is Virginia Constitution, which is the basis of Constitution, especially, but not limited to, the so-called Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And of course, it preceded also the Declaration of Independence. And all that is based on the writings of John Locke. We go through this every single week. Every single week we go through this. What is John Locke's writing, which is what is known best as modern day English common law? Well, it's based in the King James Version of the Bible. Doesn't matter whether it's the first version of the King James Version of the Bible. John Locke does not critique turning singular into plural. John Locke does not critique punctuation in two treatises on government. And John Locke does not write his two treatises on government based on the 5th edition of the King James Bible either. But it's easily translated into modern time by those who are smart enough to research stuff that anybody can comprehend. You know, when somebody is saying thou using Elizabethan or Jamesian English, you know, one can say, oh, thou, that means thou. Thou, that means you. If you can, you know, and I suggest folks do it. Read Shakespeare. Listen to Shakespeare. You know, book on tape, whatever. You'll be able to get what is being said, and it doesn't matter what translation. Here's a King James Version of the Bible, 5th edition, of course. That's a law book. That is the basis of the law. And well, got this Constitution, and I know I've got another book in here. I thought maybe for a second I didn't have it on. So this is just the Bible, but that's the New Standard Version of the Bible. You know, I don't read one and then go to the other and go like, man, this is totally different. It's completely different. Or even Hebrew translations, direct. The so-called Geneva Bible. You don't read the translation for that and go like, man, this, I just can't make sense of it. It's so different in the English Standard Version from the Geneva Bible, from the King James Version of the Bible from 1611. You don't get confused. It means the same thing. It means the same thing. So, and all this, it just goes to show that the law of the land, Constitution, we just showed you my travel Constitution. Here's my fancy Constitution. Here's the fancy one I use. You may have seen this in the big hit documentary series, Money Trail, specifically used in the documentary series called The International Banking Cartel. That tells you all you need to know. That's case closed, even after this hour-long documentary that was made back in 2012. Case closed against all governments. Oh, except for the one that may have produced it. Because all others are hiding what they're doing. They're controlled by a central bank called the Bank for International Settlements, which is the lender of last resort for all the central banks of the world that engage in nothing but usury. What's the Bible say about usury? And mind you, if you say, I don't care what the Bible says, well then you can't care about anything about the law. The law is based in the Bible. The law is based in the King James Version of the Bible, but it can be based in any version of the Bible. Any version of the Bible. You know, we go back and we talk about the esoteric origins of the Bible, and how it connects to the Egyptian mystery schools, how it connects to the Torah, and how the Christianity is the religion, Messianic Christianity is the religion of the Old Testament and the New Testament, and it is the same with the Torah, and it is the same with the tarot, which is the basis of all of these religious books, which is based in the religion of the stars, astrotheology, astrology, etc., etc. That's what it's all based on. In the evening, during the winter, the sun goes down, the moon comes up. Sin, moon and sin are synonymous. Okay, and then the sun, you know, after the sun has been crucified, the sun rises again. Okay, so it doesn't just mean that, it means this and that. It means all sorts of esoteric and spiritual things, but that's where the basis comes from. That's where the comprehension of all this stuff comes from. It comes from manna. We've gone through manna. We've gone through green herb in the Bible, and activating the frontal lobe. We've made the connection of the shape of the sphenoid bone, which protects the pineal and pituitary gland. The so-called God gland, or third eye, is shaped like a monarch butterfly and an owl. Therefore, you see all the owl symbolism on the money, or the tiny owl symbolism on the cash, or the Bohemian Grove symbolism, or you get the same, you know, monarch shape when you look at the shape of certain parts of the hypothalamus. There you also get the Egyptian scarab connection. It's all about mind control when you're talking about the scarab beetles, the beetles as a new wave of controlling the popular culture through a military intelligence operation. Folks have kind of looked into that, but the scarab beetle connection to the hypothalamus and control of the brain being supreme, and the so-called Star of David, which is not a Star of David. It is a interlaced trine. So this is a powerful symbol, and it represents sexual congress, but it represents the sexual congress of the male and female brains, the uniting. Where does that unite? And the third eye. So this is coming from C.C. Zane. He's a source I use when studying the Bible and when studying ancient mystery schools. So, which are, I mean, they're not one and the same, but they are one and the same. What one is based in another. There's expansions. There's also genealogy behind the Bible. There's it's a law book. It's based in astrotheology. It's based in genealogy. The generation of Isis, Genesis, the generation of Isis. You know, we've decoded a lot of the so-called, which is, you know, is, or I shouldn't say so-called, the misinterpreted or mislabeled so-called Masonic. We're gonna try to bring Cliff on. Masonic. I'm adding Cliff now. Masonic coding, which goes way back before Masonry. To, of course, the generation of Isis. Veiled Isis is there's a lot of hidden meaning of that in that. We go through this every week. Every week we go through this. I don't know what happened, Cliff. Maybe if I try it some other way. Approve. Okay, I don't know why they add. Okay. No answer from live guest. My smart device keeps acting up. Who's saying that? Okay. I gotta turn the camera around now. Let's see here. Daggone it. Okay. So I'm just gonna keep going, and hopefully this camera will turn around. Approve. Mohammed bin Salman. Add. No answer from live guest, it says. So. Okay, there we go. Now at least we're back facing the right direction. Man, I freak out. I don't even like touching this thing once we get broadcasting, because it's so sometimey and temperamental. My smart devices keep acting up. Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can invite you, Clifford, because it's how about this, Cliff? Can you sign off and then sign back on, and then I'll invite you once it says Clifford is now watching. That's like the easiest way for me to do it. Let's see. Yeah. Cliff is making some excellent points. I haven't really been watching too much. Yeah, I'm trying to bring Cliff on. David. And yeah. Hey, greetings to Preston Brown. Glad to see he's watching. I always like to go on WCLM Radio, 1450 AM in Richmond, run by Preston Brown. Yeah, Cliff, I see your I see your request, but like I was saying, maybe I'm pressing your icon now, and it doesn't seem to be working. But Cliff, if maybe you can sign off and then sign back on, and then I'll try to invite you that way once you're signed off and then sign back on. In the meantime, I like to get into what we were talking about how folks are misrepresenting what these esoteric symbols mean when it's the ancient feminine and masculine meeting together. That's that's at the highest level. It's meaning the combination of or the coming together, I should say, excuse me, of the male and female brain. You know, so let's get into a little bit more about the digging into the esoteric basis of that. The graphic on the front cover of this book, and we just showed that. And this is C.C. Zane, The Sacred Tarot. It contains the true story behind the biblical and Masonic representations of symbols. You know, so like when you get to like the highest sorts of levels, and it's any sort of occult, mystery, school, spiritual endeavor, one is attempting to take on the attributes of a sacred symbol, uniting with deity. The Bible is full of uniting with deity. That's the basis of the Bible, is uniting with deity. That's the basis of those who wrote the Bible. And you know, there's these jokers on the internet who act like that they are experts on this, but they don't know anything about anything. And most of them are military intelligence agents who are spreading misinformation and just attempting to confuse somebody. So when we say, for example, you know, we go like, oh, well, hey, all millionaires and billionaires, all government officials, all those engaged in usury are guilty of treason. When we find these parts of the Bible in which that is very evident, that they want to talk to us about translations, and these guys were Freemasons, even though they wrote it, you know, 110 years before Freemasonry. Okay, Cliff, thanks. Was formed. I am going to attempt to bring Clifford on. Come on. Let's see. Add viewers. Huh. Okay, it's allowing me, you know, saying I could bring in any... Oh, there you are, Cliff. Oh, you know what? It's not giving me the opportunity to add you, Cliff. It's not, you know, it says add David Dauterive, add J.D. Davis, add Kyle Lampkin, add Daryl Miller, add Drew Winkler, and then it goes Clifford Eberhardt, Timothy Simmons, Patrick John Baptiste, and it's not giving me the option to add any of these guys after the name Drew Winkler. So that's a little strange, but let's see. Can we do that? I'm clicking on your icon, Cliff. I don't know what that could be. Let's see. Okay, now, yeah, Cliff's still not able to be added. So let me see if I can. No, and when I click on you, okay, did you? Hopefully, maybe you. That's weird. It is weird. Still the same. Still the exact same. If you're on an iPad, maybe that's it. Maybe Clifford's on an iPad, and you know, I can't use my iPad to broadcast this. I mean, it's an older iPad. It's from like 2011 or 2012. Yeah. Yeah, maybe try another device. Have you been on this broadcast with the iPad before, Cliff? I'm talking to him on the message board. All right. Well, we'll keep trying to get Clifford on, and while we're doing that, I'll keep an eye on our progress, and I'll keep going with this. The graphic on the front cover of this book is the emblem of the Brotherhood of Light. There you go. The Brotherhood of Light is above all the churches. It's above all the secret societies of Freemasons, etc., etc. Its two interlaced trines are commonly associated with the Star of David. In fact, the interlaced trines precede the time of Moses, who was Tutmosis, who was trained in the Egyptian mystery schools. He was trained in the Egyptian mystery schools because he was a Egyptian pharaoh of the pharaonic line. In fact, the interlaced trines precede the time of Moses, aka Tutmosis, who was trained in the Egyptian mystery schools, as we say all the time. It's all very clear once you get through all the nonsense, and did not appear as a Jewish symbol until after their Babylonian, in quote, in brackets, Chaldean, so it's really Chaldean captivity. Tradition holds that this image was handed down to the Babylonians from more ancient times. The ensemble of interlaced trines with the name of deity in the center and astrological symbols around the outside was the ancient emblem of the religion of stars, which is the basis of all religions. It's the basis of all the religions in the world. All the religions of the world are based in the religion of the stars. Everybody knows this. Either you know this, or you are a liar, or you're completely ignorant to the point where nothing will make true sense, and you can never truly serve God. You can never truly attain your spiritual purpose on this planet, because you're being enslaved from this knowledge right now. You are above all governments. Man creates government. Government doesn't create man. God's created man. Male and female created he, them. That's it. It's not, we haven't been raised up by this religion that they call government. This is a false religion. The two interlaced trines used by initiates signified, among other things, the involution and evolution of the soul through the cycle of necessity. Tradition teaches that the androgynous ego, or spark of deity at the core of each soul, existed in an unconscious and blissful state of Edenic purity. It's Edenic, as in Eden, the Garden of Eden, purity, but was tempted to undergo involution into material form for the sake of acquiring consciousness through the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. We're decoding things. This is all very simple. Descending into material descending into material realms, the deific ego, split into twin souls, male and female. The down-pointing trine, often dark in color, indicates the descent of the soul into material conditions for the purpose of gaining necessary experience. The up-pointing trine, often light in color, indicates the ascent of evolution of the soul back to the realm of spirit after gaining necessary experience in material conditions. After attaining self-conscious awareness in the human form, the twin souls reunite in the spiritual realm. In doing so, they partake of the tree of life and complete their return to the celestial plane. The essence of this cycle is found in most of the world's religious creation stories. For example, in ancient Egypt, Osiris is portrayed as murdered and dismembered. The 14 dismembered parts, each soul possessing a septenary constitution, were sent floating down the Nile. The current of involutionary life. The current of involutionary life, which is represented by the Nile, finally to be cast upon the muddy banks like money banks, like currency, like everything flowing and moving, seen and unseen. The current of the involutionary life, finally to be cast upon the muddy banks of the delta, the material world. But faithful Isis, nature, ISIS is nature, God's law, gathers together these fragments, and breathing upon them the breath of life, they are reunited to Osiris. Excuse me, they are reunited, and Osiris is born anew, never again to die. These allegories symbolically depict the drama of the soul's descent from the celestial state, the separation of the twin souls in the highest realm of the spiritual world, who after a time nature again brings them together, and after breathing upon them the breath of life unites them, and with their united strength they make the return journey as conscious beings to become immortal. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good, Cliff. Send me another request and I'll look out for it right away. We're trying to get Clifford Eberhardt on the line. He's out there in the Bay Area around San Francisco, so we're gonna get firsthand reporting on the San Francisco or the Silicon Valley NoCal fires, and of course there's the SoCal Thousand Oaks fires. Clifford pointed out the smoke bomb as the California wildfire motif connected with the fake shooting at the Borderline Bar and Grill, which is to be connected with this government UN created so-called caravan that is allegedly the purpose, the reason I should say, why United States military, active duty military, is being placed inside the United States at the borderline between the United States of Mexico and the United States of America. Really, we're just gonna have a bunch of military checkpoints everywhere. That's what these borders are. The 14th Amendment, it is null and void, obviously, but the reason is not because of anchor babies, so-called anchor babies, because it turns people, it makes an effort to legally turn people into persons and citizens, and all people who have all the power, where all the power of government is vested and derived from, are turned into feckless things, feckless dead bodies that are persons or citizens and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States government. It's that plain and that simple. I was almost going to have a Freudian slip and call it plain and symbol, because symbols run the world. Your chicken scratch that somebody calls your signature. Oh, you signed it. That means... No, I don't agree to anything. I'm not a substitute on all contracts. Using their language and using the language of the law of God, I'm a man and one of the people. The highest form of governing body on the planet. The highest form of lawful authority on the planet is man. The highest form of government lawful authority on the planet is people, made up of male and female. Man, male and female, made up of male and female. And where do they get that? Where do we get our authority? All authority comes from in the United States of America. It comes from the militia. What is that? The body of the people. You notice George Mason IV, who is the author of the Virginia Declaration of Rights, who basically just, took everything from the most important parts of two treatises on government based on, that's a writing by John Locke, based on the King James Bible. He made that. And when he was questioned, sir, let's find this in the militia handbook. Sir, what is the militia? Okay, I don't even know what page that is, but it's not a long book, so it'll be easy to find. It's probably in the chapter, I think that's in the chapter, Militia and the Solution, or Implementing the Law. Let's see. We'll read a lot of that. Uh, hey, David, do you know where that is in the book? Okay, so we're gonna find it, but until we do, this is Virginia Declaration of Rights. That all power is vested in and consequently derived from the people. That magistrates are their trustees and servants, and at all times amenable to them. They're servants. Don't get caught up in the trustees because there's no trust in government. They are our servants. So unless government is acting as servants of the people, which when they engage in war is the opposite of servitude, it is the opposite of servitude. It's all null and void. This is the basis of the law. I'm reading from Virginia Constitution, Article 1, Section 2. This is Virginia Constitution, Article 1, Section 3. The government is or ought to be instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the people, nation, or community, of all the various modes and forms of government. That is best which is capable of producing the greatest degree of happiness and safety, and is most effectually secured against the danger of maladministration. And that when any government shall be found inadequate or contrary to these purposes, a majority of the community hath an indubitable, inalienable, and indefeasible right to reform, alter, or abolish it in such manner as shall be judged most conducive to the public weal. Virginia Constitution. So how do we do that? Why is that particularly put at the beginning of the basis of all law in the United States of America, and really the basis of all law in the United Kingdom, in Australia, in Canada, in Northern Ireland, I'll dare say even in Ireland, in Scotland? It's all based on what we just read. Those two sections of Virginia Constitution, which is also known as Virginia Declaration of Rights. So we'll get to how is that put into place? How is that implemented? Here we go. We'll read first Article 1, Section 13 of Virginia Constitution. A well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people, trained to arms, is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state. Okay. What's the defense in order to have a free state? The militia. What is that? It's a body of the people, or the body of the people, trained to arms. Okay, then we'll read the next part, because here we'll do it with all of the punctuation, all the commas, all the semicolons, and we'll read it all the way through. A well-regulated militia, comma, composed of the body of the people, comma, trained to arms, comma, is the proper, comma, natural, comma, and safe defense of a free state, semicolon. That standing armies, comma, in time of peace, comma, should be avoided, comma, as dangerous to liberty, semicolon. Is that clear enough for you guys? And that in all cases, comma, the military should be under strict subordination to, comma, and governed by the civil power. What is the civil power? The body of the people trained to arms. The body of the people trained to arms. Okay, so we'll go further down and this is, I'm reading from the Militia Handbook, and I'm on page 6. So if you have the Militia Handbook, or you've bought it online, you can open to page 6. And here's what I'm stating. And this is cited. I'm going to try Cliff again. Using, okay, approve, add, No answer from live guest, it says again. That's strange. That's real strange. Okay. So we'll try it again. Approve, Cliff. Got on another Wi-Fi network. I don't know. It's not working. It's still showing the request. I'm clicking. It says your viewers request to be in your broadcast. Allows viewers to send you a request to join your broadcast. You can add them at any point. And I'm clicking for Clifford Eberhardt. Approve. And then it says bring Clifford Eberhardt on camera, ? They'll receive an invite to join your broadcast. Add. No answer from live guest. So let me see if I can add, okay. It's showing your name, but it's not giving me the opportunity to add. It's every other person up until a certain point, and it's not allowing me to add you, Cliff. I don't know why. It's really annoying. So we just read Article 1, Section 13 of Virginia Constitution, and it explains the purpose of why the people need a militia. Because, hey, I'm getting phone calls. Whoever's calling, I'm from a 425 area code. I am on the air. So, I'm getting text and telephone calls. I can't, I'm not going to respond to them. But I can tell you if you're calling from 425 area code, I am on the air. I'm on the air. So this clearly dictates, I'm talking about Article 1, Section 13 of Virginia Constitution. This clearly dictates the people must always have superior firepower over the government. Under the law, the Virginia Militia, and in brackets, the people, the Virginia Militia, what is that? The people are the rightful stewards of the Pentagon, located in Virginia, and the DoD infrastructure, located in Virginia, and the Naval Station Norfolk, including all nuclear weapons in that jurisdiction and all nuclear weapons inside the United States. If the people don't have control over all the deadly weapons of war, they don't have any control over anything. The issuance of currency, they don't, if the people don't control the issuance of currency and the deadly weapons of war and the public airwaves, the people control nothing. We don't control this apparatus, this DARPA net apparatus that we are talking to you through. We are using our enemies' tools against them, and that happens. It is important to note that the American militia and the American people are one and the same. The creator of the Virginia Declaration of Rights, George Mason IV, described the oneness of the militia to the people when he states thusly, I ask, sir, what is the militia? Let me repeat myself. This is George Mason answering, what is the militia? I ask, sir, sir, what is the militia? Question mark. It is the whole people, except for a few public officials. So it's the entire people, unless you're in the government. That's George Mason IV. So, yeah, please call in on Blog Talk. Don't call me on my other phone, on my phone, because I'm using it to broadcast on Blog Talk. And I'm blind to Blog Talk right now, David. Are you still connected on Blog Talk?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Would you write? Excuse me. Would you prefer to bring me on Facebook Live?
Yeah, let's try that. Let's try that. Let's try that. And a couple other things. The computer is frozen up, so I'm gonna try, I guess, to operate with this iPad. And yeah, David, let me see about if I can bring you on Now it's not. Now it's not allowing me to add you. Oh wait. Okay, there it is. Okay, I'm gonna let me add you. Add. Okay, that's weird. It's adding David right on. I mean, jump into too many conclusions, but
Here we are.
yeah. Okay.
Sound.
David's on. We're getting a little bit of feedback, but it's not as bad. So, David, I'm gonna look up Usury in the Bible again, and see what is about usury. Because all these nuclear weapons, all the weapons of operations, the direct energy weapons, it's all based in there's a money payoff for all of it. All words, and going back to ancient times when one tribe did another, there's always sort of financial interest based in theft on warfare. So yeah, we know on here. Getting that again.
I mean, again, look, man is is always been a natural warlike human. For instance, I mean, because we've said it before, one of the most natural things man can do is get a group of close personal family members and arm yourselves and mob up. That's the basis of everything. That's how you don't rely on government municipalities to do the protecting for you, especially when, I mean, okay, I get it. If a policeman would follow me around everywhere and protect me, then he might be a public servant. But that's not the case. I don't rely on that. I would rather carry my own protection because it's already written into the law. I mean, a lawful man carrying his own firearm, his own safety, is more lawful than the police department and any other government agency that violates your amendment rights and more than that too. Now, I mean, again, the police departments, the United States Army, one of the most un-American entities, the most un-American, because we have documentation from our founding fathers that said so.
Right. Okay. We're getting a little reverb again. There's reverb allegedly when I'm talking, and now we're talking about Article 1, Section 8. It says that there can't be a standing army for more reasons. Why don't you expand on that and if maybe use the book?
Well, let's see. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, all power.
Basically, Article 1, Section 8 states you can't have a standing army.
Standing army for more than 2 years in times of peace. Now, why do you think they have to implement a constant state of war? I mean, so I came across, before the show, of an old military newsreel from 1946 called talking about how we must continue the state of censorship and wartime secrets. Even though the war has ended because of the Soviet Union, the impending Cold War, and we see the same thing after 9/11 with the creation of the Project for New American Century and the creation of the cabinet of the Department of Homeland Security and implementations of continuity of operations, which is written into this book and is being ironically is being carried out on the southwest border like military documents talk about. And again, this is nothing. I mean, Sam Walton, I mean, I'm sure we've talked about this before. His family was involved in internment projects during the Second World War, I believe of I know of Japanese, but I don't know about Germans. But still, so this all comes around full circle. This stuff is obvious, and I myself I've seen how in disaster-ridden areas, especially around New Orleans during Katrina, that's exactly where the military and the government hand out supplies to people is the corporate supermarkets. I mean, those places when you strip all the belongings and all the made in China merchandise out of these, they just become big industrial warehouses where they can process people like the Superdome.
Absolutely. Let me see. I'm trying to figure out where that's coming from.
I don't really hear anything on my end, but again, lately they've been making it a lot harder.
I mean, the sound's not really horrible. There's a little bit of a reverb. So I don't know. Can you still call back into the show?
Sure. I'll try that. Wait, hold on. What if I turn my volume down?
Well, let's try it. I think it's coming from my end, honestly.
All right. Well, let's see.
Because you don't sound that bad. And I'm getting reverb.
Well,
go ahead. So let's keep you talking while you're on the air.
Okay.
And then get back to the radio connection after that.
Okay. I'll close out by reading The Militia and the Solution. There are many who write on the hidden hand that enslaved the planet. However, a few offer solutions to neutralize the persons and institutions which carry out global tyranny. We as the militia will offer not only what to do, but also in regard to destroying the unlawful criminal entity that runs the one world government. In other words, we're acting in the most lawful manner we can. No matter if anybody ever tries to tell you we're crazy, we're radical, that's the government. The government is become the outlaw, has become the one that is a fugitive from the law, and all we're doing is implementing the law. Now, again, these institutions which I just described, that are outlaws and fugitive, excuse me, they control. That control government exists in violation of the law and must be neutralized. In addition, writing about the unlawful nature of the government, we also put a bullseye on their owners / officers, corporate officers, which are just as guilty as government officials. Because, for instance, we name various corporations that are one and the same with the United States federal government. It is always the case that a small group of dedicated individuals are the driving force behind change. The abolition of the Zionist shadow government will be no different. The first step is to gather a group of informed individuals who realize that if we do not act now against the government, it will soon be too late. The usurping ruling class is aware that their grip of power is tenuous, which is why every media covered opposition group is in fact created by the government that present to oppose them. So in other words, that's most people, most persons we deal with. Chris, how did we describe it before? It's a group gathered to do nothing, to make sure that a group like the militia that's gathered to do something continue. I'd say more than that. And we have concluded that action and not empty rhetoric drives change. The government rules through force. This is compliance through violence. No, this compliance through violence model is made clear when one views the ever-increasing deadly force exerted by the domestic occupying militarized police forces and murderous multinational war machines, like all the other governments of the world that, like NATO, for instance, a pack of many different countries who operate in the same unlawful manner as the United States. The militia, which is the only lawful law enforcement arm, as it stands now, cannot beat these government forces fighting a battle on our enemy's terms. However, with a small number and proper tactics, the current unlawful government structure will be brought down like a house of cards. As members of the militia, it is the duty all to not only arm themselves with guns, but more importantly, wisdom and a video camera, so that you may document all your encounters. In other words, if you tell the militia you participated in an event and you can't manage to get it on camera, then you've already failed your mission. The first step in dealing with any corporate or government entity is to record and decimate all interactions, establishing the criminal nature of
disseminate,
David. Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, sometimes I read so fast I don't take time to fully look at the letter. But anyway, the government has targeted lawful men and women in this country. It is time now to lawfully target the real criminals, which are corporate and government leaders. Again, we can't say this enough. These people, everything they do, the prosecuting, the investigation that everybody that everybody says has to be done first, it's already been done. What more do you need to know? We provide all the all the evidence that they're definitely engaged in and child rape, child sodomies, because that's how they control their clients, through blackmail, deception, and chicanery. Those are all high crimes. They may not be on the books of these statutes, about like murder and homicide, but that does not make them any less significant or not make them crimes, even though they're not officially identified yet. I mean, there's been countries and civilizations, there used to be laws against people that if you're speaking in a way to where the public hears you, and in other words, these politicians that come on television and promise you things that they openly know they'll never be able to carry out, that was once highly unlawful, and everybody knew it. I mean, if you're in a position to where people are where you're amenable to people, yes, you're on the job 24 hours a day. That is a public service. It's not a job where the public just keeps unlawfully paying their hard-earned money to have you rich. I mean, that again, everybody has a complete different idea about what a government is, because they look, whenever they talk politics, they talk about the government as if the people create the government to control them. We're going to create something, and then that something that we created will have total control over us. I mean, how crazy does that sound? That is nuts. The Blog Talk Radio.
Our blog talk just ended.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I agree. I know we're getting reverb, so just bear with us while we got David on the line. Yeah, somebody would have to be more agree to subject to a government. Or completely cornered and absolutely don't. So the best case scenario, that's the case pretty much, is to recognize the fact that you are a slave. And that there is only one way to not be a slave, and that's to gain control of the weapons of war, which is written into the law.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about the reverb.
I may try to use a different device. I'll hang up and call back.
Okay. So, all right. So thanks for bearing with us. We couldn't even bring Clifford on. I'm pretty upset about that. I don't know what has changed since we would bring Clifford on in the past, but we are unable to bring Clifford on using our Amazon device, and it's a little annoying. But in any event, all this stuff is so obvious, folks. You either control the weapons of war or you're a slave. It's the basis of all law. It's the natural law. It's the natural law. Now they want to tell us all sorts of other things that are going on with the world and that we should be worried about, but basically it's just implementing our slavery. Any decision that they meaning when I say they, I'm talking about the criminal government, allows the public to have any say over is, number one, all for show, like the elections, which are 100% rigged. If you guys trust the elections at this point, anywhere, I mean, it just has come first circle to me. Full circle, I should say. Because, I've always not trusted the government. But one of the things that got me to say, like, well, hey, they say we live in a democracy, and they say everything is based on these elections. And in the year 2000, I saw the elections, and I was like, oh, wait a second. This is totally rigged. They didn't count people's votes. They lost tens of thousands of votes. The person who really won, they said, didn't win, and they're both agreeing to this. Wow, this is absurd. Years later, about 4 years later, after the elections of 2000, I became through my political activity, starting being an activist in the government-controlled anti-war network. The government runs that. All the communists and stuff, they all work for the government. The Workers' World Daily, Antifa, they're government agents, and so are the right wing. But I became a member of the Democratic Party, and now I know firsthand for sure, more than almost anyone else, all the detailed ways that the elections are fixed even before it comes down to voting. Every step of the way it is rigged. It is rigged, and everybody's in on it. Everybody's in on it. Either they are so stupid that they're a body that they put in to, like, they don't know what's going on. They need useful idiots there. Or they're engaged in election fraud. Both the Republican and Democratic Party, that's all they do. They don't do anything else except for election fraud and manipulation. That's all they do. All government officials. Because they have to be put in place through election fraud, because all elections are rigged. And it happens even before you get to the ballots. Even before the ballots are set, the process is rigged. How do I know this? Well, there's videos where I verified it. I see firsthand information, know the judge and the elections officials to contact, got them on camera and exposed it, publicized it to the media, got the media to recognize, and it's very simple. It's like, hey, wait a second, it's 8 days after the election in 2012 and 2013, and there are 6 precincts in the city of Richmond with 0 votes. Like, nobody voted in 6 different precincts in the city of Richmond. And then the year after, the same thing happens. It happens in 2012. Then it happens in 2013. We just happen to have, I and a former city council member called Shirley Harvey just happened to have a federal lawsuit exposing and suing the Virginia and Richmond City elections officials when this absolute ridiculous fraud takes place? I mean, I know it. If somebody challenges me on something, I'm always looking for somebody who knows more than me. You don't. And I'm telling you, the elections are rigged 100%. And now we have it coming full circle 18 years later where I was like, well, wait a second. Yeah, oh yeah, this seems fishy. This is real fishy. Then they have you think, oh, it's the Republicans. The Republicans stole the election. Then it's the Democrats who steal the election. And then you get a bunch of idiots going like, oh, it's... And I was an idiot once thinking it's the Republicans stealing elections. It's whoever wins steals the election. And the Republicans and Democrats are controlled by the same Jewish mafia. They are backbenchers for this UN Agenda 21 driven world government. They are, to quote a movie, or paraphrase probably is more likely what I'll do, errand boys sent by grocery store clerks. That's who the congressmen and senators and president are. That's who they are. So think about all the levels that are below them, and that's what you have. The only real authority comes from what? I mean, I make my claims genetically. I am the true Germanic king. I am the I have, and I don't know anybody else who does it. There are 2 million others who have a bloodline claim to the kingdom, or being the king or the regent or the sovereign of the United Kingdom, and I'm one of 2 million other men who has that. That you have to have an R-M222 Y-DNA haplogroup to have any sort of claim to be the King of England. I've got that. And I know that there are others. I mean, I know celebrities who have that. Bill O'Reilly has it. Bill Maher has it. But here's the problem. They don't have any standing beyond that point. So I make my claims, but I mean, that's nothing. Everybody should make the claims. Say you're a Catholic and you don't like the way the church exists seemingly only to commit usury and to rape children. Declare yourself the Pope. I mean, it's happened before in history. The Avignon papacy, they had a pope in Avignon, France. They had a pope in Rome and the Vatican City. Who's to say whatever? I mean, think about all those wars being fought. I'm the King of England. No, I'm the King of England. War. I'm the mayor of the palace. No, I'm the mayor of the palace. War. Okay, that's how things work in the world. So, us at home, we're getting bombarded with everything. And they're going like, well, vote. You hate everything? Everything sucks? Everything's criminal? Just vote. The only sign that there is hope for America is that a vast majority of the population does not participate in rigged elections. And we need to get everyone not to participate in rigged elections and to require that the government hand over the weapons of war. Because as we say in the book, there's no way that any of these so-called militias that are out there, which are all controlled by the government, can do anything to the police. I've never seen them do anything that I do. Outflank the police, outflank and have the most military strategic position, including filming the backs of all police and all government officials at a government meeting with a gun. I plan on doing it again. I plan on making what I'm doing much more clear. What I'm saying, if you don't say it while you're armed, it means nothing. We're saying all government officials are guilty of treason. Under the law, we will be more merciful than the law. We're not going to execute everyone, but all the top levels of the government are guilty of treason. If you can't see that, you can't see anything. You don't know anything. And what's their basis? What is the basis of all this stuff? It's usury. 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 And what's it say in the Bible, like, about usury? We go through this every single week. Every week we go through this. Exodus, if thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as an usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. And here's my favorite. That's from that last one was from Exodus 22:25. Here's my favorite. Ezekiel 18:13. Hath given forth upon usury, comma, and hath taken increase. What was that? Colon. Sorry, got my punctuation mixed up. Let's start this again. Ezekiel 18:13. Hath given forth upon usury, comma, and hath taken increase, colon. Shall he then live? Question mark. He shall not live, colon. He hath done all these abominations. Was that semicolon? He shall surely die. His blood shall be upon him. And it goes on and on and on. Usury is a bad thing. It used to be banned for Christians to engage in usury. Now what happened? All of a sudden it's okay? Were they wrong when they banned it? Were they less or more Christians? What does the Bible say is the root of all evil? For the love of money is the root of all evil. So, for the love of money, what does that get you to engage in? Usury. So then that must be evil, right? Oh no, it's okay now? Says who? When did that happen? When was that correct? Let's see. For the love of money. For the love of money is the root of all evil. That's Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. By craving it, some have wandered away from the path and pierced themselves with many sorrows. Means that they have separated themselves from deity. They cannot be what you would call a Christian. They cannot be a follower of the Bible. They can only be a usurer. They can only be like the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the Jews who covet the money and covet usury. And who banned it first? Well, the unified Christian church, what they call the Catholic Church. They banned usury, but they were engaged in usury as they were banning it, with indulgences and all that, apparatus, that fraud, racketeering apparatus that caused Martin Luther to break from the church, or so the story goes. Certainly they were engaged in chicanery, indulgences, usury, etc., etc., etc. So then they couldn't hide it anymore, so they're like, oh yeah, I guess we'll just pretend like usury is not a thing. Like, how many verses in the Bible are about usury? How many times do you hear about usury when you go to church? Never, because every church is engaged in usury. Let me repeat that again. Every church is engaged in usury. So that's why you don't hear about usury and the death penalty for usury and God commandments against usury and the root of all evil being the love of money, let's read it. Let's see. KJV. I'm always going to stick to that version. So I don't think that was the KJV version, but I accept that other version that I just read. Because again, we're not going to get sidetracked by distractions. When something is coded in a certain way and it's obvious. Like fake smoke bombs and fake shootings when there's a forest fire in the area, and connecting the dots between the smoke over California and the smoke during this, Operation Mockingbird, military information support operation that includes not just a stage shooting, which is a psychological operation and a military information support operation, but part of a larger offensive military operation that includes direct energy weapons being used in that location against the American population. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some covet it after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. I like that translation better for some reason. You heard them both. I'll go with both. Yeah, it's in the Quran too. Thanks, Muhammad. O believers, fear Allah. If you are of the believers, relinquish what remains due from usury. If you do not do it, then you are in war with Allah and his messenger. I'll say amen to that. Amen. What's different? What's different between this, which comes from the Islamic religion, which means followers of God, and Timothy 6:10? What's the difference? The answer is there is no difference. I remember many years ago hearing President Ahmadinejad of Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, talking more, I would say, hyperbolic, except for I wouldn't use that word hyperbolic, more holy Christian rhetoric than any preacher I have ever heard. He says, in paradise, we will all live under the rules set forward by Jesus Christ. That's what he said. That's what Ahmadinejad said. Back 7 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe. But in any event, I'm sure you guys can still find that on the internet. I heard it from many sources, including a lot of Jew sources, a lot of misinformation sources who use that to as a Trojan horse to get people to follow them, only to mislead them. But we're not misleading anyone. Who are we citing? What are we citing? We're citing the Bible. That's God's law. And we know and have taken on all comers who debate us otherwise that the King James Version of the Bible is the basis of the law in the United States. That means it's the basis, number one, of the writings of John Locke, two treatises on government, and specifically second treatise on government, which is the basis of Virginia Constitution, which is the basis of not only the Declaration of Independence, but also Constitution for the United States. If you can't connect those dots, go back to elementary school and be schooled and be brainwashed again, because this is as simple as we can put it, and it doesn't get much more simple. Well, I don't think things are very simple with Iran. Now, I know folks who directly and indirectly work for the Iranian government. This is a question from Andrea Crow. Is it true that we should look out when Iran falls? I'm hoping that does not happen, because what we're talking about is basically, if you will, as it instructs in the book of Revelations, smite the nations. The nations must be smited. And the only real government that is not overtly 100% criminal is Iran. And although I've always had much more honorable interactions with every single Iranian associate of mine, and most seemingly working for the Iranian government, than all of the interactions I've ever had with any government official in the United States, including those who may be genetically related to me. I say that Iran is head and shoulders above anyone else. Now, I think that there's also battles inside of Iran. I know that there are the forces of the Mossad that have infiltrated that government, as they infiltrate everything. There are infiltrators from all sorts of nefarious operations. That's what happens. But overall, Iran is a more honorable government than any other government on the planet. And although I like the Iranian individuals that I work for on a personal level, saying that Iran is the least criminal of all the governments is not saying much, but it's saying everything. No other government can save themselves. No other high-ranking government officials in any of these places. And think about those who have destroyed Europe, and how the rage of the European people will be unleashed on those traitors. And first, it's not going to be the Jews. The Jews are the Jews. But the worst are those who slave themselves out for the Jews in order to carry out the Jews' agenda, who are controlling our homeland, Germany, Switzerland, France, Spain, Denmark, England, Ireland, Scotland, etc., etc. And guys, look up Scottish Declaration of Independence. Just look it up. We'll go over it next week. Look up Scottish Declaration of Independence, and you'll see all the stuff about, you know, how they make a mockery out of this stuff with the Scottish Rite Freemasonry. You know, all these secret societies, they are a simulation using the binary code. That's why they love the number 555, which is the binary code of 101, which is the simulation equation by which all computer programs, by which all phone lines operate, by which all telegraph machines would operate. 101, that's the basis of it. Or positive, neutral, positive. Positive, neutral, positive. Combine those in electronic forces, miraculous things occur. But it's a simulation. All of the, we have the internal zodiac. We don't need an external zodiac. We have an internal, and there is an external zodiac. So these things are, they're attempting to simulate something. Now, there's something powerful about, the Scottish Rite. But what's the Scottish Rite? What does that mean? Does that mean that anybody can, put on a female apron with some symbols on it, and they can use the word Scottish, which comes from Scotia, which represents the pharaonic line of the Egyptians who went from Egypt, the Holy Land, the Levant, the Levantine region. You see, that's the proper way to categorize anyone from the so-called Holy Land. It's not Semitic, it's Levantine or Levantine of the Levant. So where did it go? How is this historically documented? Declaration of Independence of the Scottish Declaration of Independence. Genetic DNA testing for modern day times. Now, this is just the information that we have at our hands, but it disputes and blows out of the water any other claims. Any other claims are blown out of the water. Egypt to what? The Iberian Peninsula. Then you get Hibernian, which represents the Levantine peoples of Ireland and Scotland. Ireland used to be called Scotland. They used to be called the Aryans. And now they screw that word up, and it means basically Western European, then it means neo-Nazi, then it means everything else. But that's why with a name like Andrea Crowe, spelled Crowe, it would not be any surprise at all to hear that you have ancestors from Scotland and New Scotia. New Scotia. Scotia? What was Scotia? She was an Egyptian princess of the pharaonic line. And of course, I don't want to, we're not saying this is a, white nationalist talking point. We are not white supremacists. God is supreme. I prefer pretty much, the company of any canine over the company of any descendant of the Levantine, Scots, Irish, Celts, Anglo-Saxons, Aryans, whatever anybody wants to call them, cats, ponies, horses, pretty much any animal I put on a higher pedestal to people. People are natural born sinners. That's why Jesus Christ died for our sins, because I can't die for your sins because I'm going to die for my own. And somebody else can't die for my sins because they die for their own sins. Yep. Galloway, that's a Scottish and an Irish name now, and even through modern times, even through the 18th and 19th century, the Scots and the Irish are going back and forth, and they want to actually try to pretend, even to this day, through the old firm derby matches between Rangers and Celtic, Glasgow Rangers and Glasgow Celtic, that there is anything different genetically between the Irish and the Scottish, and we'll even include the English. All 85% have R1b Y DNA haplogroup. Now there's places in Africa that have that as well. They're not white people, but they still have that R1b. What is that? Do we go to the legend of King Solomon, who was just another representation of the biblical pharaonic line? Because the Bible is the coming together of the ancient Hebrew Israelites with the pharaonic line of ancient Egypt. So we know that. Do we get that from the documentation in the Bible of the child or the offspring of the biblical King Solomon, which is a title, not a person's real name, not a human being that really lived. That's not their real name. And the offspring this biblical individual had with the Queen of Sheba. And all the mystery surrounding the Ethiopian people. I would say evidence points to that. I would say the evidence points to that. And also the genetic evidence points to that that Ethiopians are genetically different from each other, and also other sub-Saharan Africans, but also intermixed. So we just try to get to the bottom of everything, and we know that most folks out there are 100% nonsense, and some guy calling himself Putin, who is trolling this show, is absolutely no different. We're not going to get into this, except for we do this every week. I'm not going to get into this in a long, drawn-out way, but yeah, okay, the Earth might not be a sphere, but it is not flat. And anyone calling me a gatekeeper, all the gates are up. The gates that aren't up they don't exist and they don't matter because we wish to have all the top secret information. Who has the top secret information on what is the shape of the world? How large is the world? What is the population? The government? Do you think some jokers on YouTube or Facebook that they're the ones that have cracked the code? Instead, it's like, who has more information? Me as an investigative researcher using DARPANet, or all of the top secret files used against us? I want all top secret files to be made public. All of them. I want all government officials to be monitored by video and by armed militiamen at all times. Everybody else just falls completely short of that. Anything short of that, and you are a slave. It's that simple. I don't know what else to say other than we say this every week. Anybody who disagrees, it's not like we're myopic and we think our ideas are so great. It's just you have to be stupid not to reach this point with all the information that's out there. With all the information that's out there about what happens in the real world. I mean, it's ludicrous. This government's failed. It's completely failed. It can't be reformed. It's 100% criminal, and it engages exclusively in war against the people. We got about 14 minutes to go on this broadcast. I'm gonna try to bring David on again, and I'm just gonna be quiet when David is talking, so we don't get that reverb. And I'm inviting him right now. Hey, David, let me try to invite. Let me try to invite Cliff. Is Cliff still on? Let's see. Okay. I invited David, and nothing's happening. Let's see. Yeah, Max. Yeah, I mean, I can't really complain about too much, because honestly, I have decided many years ago. I would say going back into the late '90s, even when I was working for like as a counselor for developmentally disabled individuals, I brought my dog to work. Everybody liked my dog, and I wasn't supposed to. I don't care for anybody else's rules. I do as I wish, and nobody can stop me. And there's nothing illegal or unlawful about anything I do. But when I started running my own businesses, I brought my dogs to work every day. Why not? They're the best companions that anyone could possibly have. They're great companions. You know, people are all crazy. Dogs are virtually almost all great. They're the best company anybody could have. That's why they call them man's best friend. And I like felines too. I like cats, and I like cows, and horses. I like all sorts of animals. You know, animals are not in the business of governing people. God gave dominion over all the animals to the people, but that's how you do it. You know, how you figure it out. Does it mean God gives you dominion so you torture and kill and eat them? No, I go the opposite way. You know, I revere animals. And, you know, they're God's gift. So what do? You be nice to them. I certainly wouldn't eat one. Don't eat animals. That's disgusting. That's not what it instructs us in the Bible to do. Except for, in fact, if you want to go like, oh, wait a second. This is God's initial commandment. It says you have dominion over the animals and that plants are your food. That is your meat. You are supposed to eat plants and have dominion over animals. But then later they say, oh, it changed. But don't eat certain kind of animals. Oh, but then that changed too. It says, yeah, don't eat swine, don't eat pigs. Oh, no. Now you can. Now it's because what? God's commandments were wrong before and they're correct now? You see, that's how you get to the basis of all of this fraud. When folks try to have it both ways. So I invite everybody. I don't do it anymore. It takes me, like I said, it took me 2 minutes of seeing those animal slaughter, PETA videos to go, yeah, that's enough for me. That's enough meat eating for me. I don't want to be involved in that. I'm not down with that, etc., etc., etc. And that's even before I had any sort of inclination that this was biblically mandated to be a vegetarian. I didn't know at that point it was biblically mandated to be a vegetarian, but it is. Where is it? On the first page. On page 1. On the first page. So, all you joker Christian usurers, phony church-going meat eaters, and non-cannabis smokers out there, congratulations. You serve the devil, and you're the farthest thing away from anything that could be associated with deity or uniting with deity, which is the purpose of the Bible. Congratulations, you serve the devil. Congratulations, you are an abomination before God and man and his creation, and all of his creation. All of the God's creation, because, of course, the gods created man, and that's plural. That's plural in every translation. Do you get it? Yes, I get it. Why? Because it's so simple. It's so simple. So we're looking at the let's see. Where are we gonna find this? I gotta find this real quick. We got about 8 minutes to go in the show. Thanks everybody for